The insistent, almost mocking chime of the emergency alert ripped through the thick, soupy Houston air in my apartment. A digital shriek that felt like a personal affront to my Saturday morning peace. My phone, nestled amongst a graveyard of empty energy drink cans and discarded takeout containers on the nightstand, vibrated with an almost frantic energy, the screen flashing that aggressive, attention-grabbing red. Emergency alert. Reality fluctuations detected within 5-mile radius of Houston. Trust no one. Remain indoors and secure your residence immediately. Tune to local news channels and official government broadcasts for further instructions. Reality fluctuations? 5-mile radius? Trust no one? My brain, still sluggishly thawing from a Friday night that had somehow involved a questionable karaoke bar and even more questionable number of Lone Stars, sputtered and stalled, trying to parse the words. It sounded like something ripped from a low-budget sci-fi channel movie marathon, not an actual emergency alert flashing across my phone in my perfectly ordinary, if slightly run-down Houston apartment. Trust no one? That part was particularly unsettling, laced with a paranoid edge that sent a shiver down my spine despite the already oppressive Houston humidity, clinging to me like a damp, unwelcome blanket. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, the gritty feeling under my lids a familiar reminder of too many late nights spent doom scrolling through social media and mainlining caffeine, and stared at my phone again, half expecting the message to have magically morphed into something less apocalyptic. Nope, still there, staring back at me with digital indifference, the same stark, unsettling message repeating in an endless loop, the words burning themselves into my consciousness like a brand. Reality fluctuations. Trust no one. Houston. That was me. That was here. Within 5 miles. My apartment, a small, slightly dusty box overlooking a perpetually gridlocked section of I-10, suddenly felt a lot less like a refuge and a lot more like a potential target. I swung my legs out of bed, the linoleum floor cool and slightly sticky under my bare feet, and shuffled toward the kitchen, my usual Saturday morning routine kicking in with a strange, almost defiant normalcy. Coffee. That was the first order of business. The clattering of the coffee maker, the rich, dark aroma of brewing coffee. These were the anchors of my mornings, the small rituals that kept me tethered to some semblance of sanity, even on the most chaotic days. Today, though, even the familiar comfort of the coffee-making process felt a little off. The sound seemed sharper, louder, almost distorted, and the aroma, while still present, had a faint metallic undertone I couldn't quite place, an unsettling edge to the usual comforting scent. As the coffee dripped, I flicked on the small kitchen TV, flipping through the channels until I landed on Channel 13, my local ABC affiliate. The screen was a jarring wash of red and white, mirroring the alert on my phone, the same stark message crawling across the bottom of the screen above a static image of the station's logo, punctuated by the insistent, repeating klaxon of the emergency broadcast system. No anchor, no reporter, just a relentless, repeating text. Emergency alert. Reality fluctuations detected within 5-mile radius of Houston. Trust no one. Remain indoors and secure your residence immediately. Okay, that was definitely not normal. Even for hurricane warnings, which were practically a Houstonian seasonal rite of passage, they usually had someone on air, explaining what was happening, calming nerves, assuring everyone it was just a precaution. This felt empty, ominous, like the city itself had fallen silent, holding its breath, waiting for something unseen to descend. I poured myself a mug of coffee, the ceramic mug feeling strangely cold in my hand, despite the steaming liquid inside, and walked over the window, peering out at the street below. Midtown was, well, Midtown. Saturday morning was usually a slow burn here, the streets gradually filling with brunch crowds, dog walkers, and the usual eclectic mix of Houstonians enjoying the weekend. Today, though, it felt different, quieter. The usual weekend energy seemed muted, subdued, almost hesitant. A few cars were moving, but fewer than usual, and they seemed to be driving with a slow, almost cautious pace, not the usual Houstonian rush hour aggression. The sky was a clear, relentlessly bright Texas blue, the kind that usually promised a sweltering, skin-scorching day, the kind that made you crave air conditioning and iced tea. But today, even the sunshine felt off, too sharp, Too intense, almost artificial. Like the world outside was a stage set, brightly lit, but strangely empty, waiting for the actors to arrive. But they were running late, or maybe they weren't coming at all. It was almost too normal, too perfect. The contrast between the serene, almost surreal normalcy outside and the screaming alert on my screens was jarring. A discordant note in the otherwise familiar symphony of my life. I took a sip of coffee, the bitter liquid doing little to dispel the growing knot of anxiety in my stomach. Maybe social media would have some actual information, some real news beyond the vague, fear-mongering alert and the eerily silent TV broadcast. I pulled out my phone again, swiping away the persistent emergency banner to open Twitter. My feed, usually a chaotic mix of memes, Astros updates, and local foodie recommendations, was different, almost uniformly focused on the emergency alert. Screenshots of phones, TVs, car radios, all showing the same red banner, the same chilling message about reality fluctuations and trusting no one. Hashtag we're trending. Hashtag Houston reality. Hashtag fluctuations. Hashtag trust no one. And the overall tone was a bizarre blend of disbelief, nervous laughter, and a palpable undercurrent of genuine, creeping dread. People were making jokes, of course, endless Truman Show references, memes about finally understanding Houston traffic, the usual internet coping mechanisms that humans deploy when faced with the utterly incomprehensible. But beneath the surface of the jokes, I could sense a real unease. No one seemed to know what was going on, what reality fluctuations actually meant, or what to expect. And the trust no one part, that was the real fuel for fire, igniting a spark of paranoia in the already tinder-dry landscape of online anxiety. I scroll further, try to find something, anything, that would shed some light on the situation. Rumors were swirling, whispers of visual distortions, reports of objects shifting and changing shape, even some truly outlandish claims about people behaving strangely, not just panicked or scared, but different, off. Like familiar faces were suddenly wearing masks, like something fundamental had shifted beneath the surface of the everyday world. One tweet from an account claiming to be a cashier at a nearby H-E-B mentioned customers forgetting what they were buying, acting confused, and arguing with themselves, but was quickly dismissed as unverified and fear-mongering. Still, it planted a seed of doubt in my mind, a tiny, insidious worry that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just a drill. I switched over to Facebook, hoping to find something more concrete from official sources. The City of Houston Emergency Management page was predictably swamped, but their latest post was just a copy-paste of the emergency alert, urging residents to remain calm, secure their residences, and monitor official channels. No details, no explanations, just the same recycled warning, the same ominous command. Trust no one. It was starting to feel less like official caution and more like a deliberate attempt to sow discord, to breed paranoia, to isolate us from each other, to make us distrust everyone. My phone buzzed again, another emergency alert notification. This time, the message was slightly different, more urgent, more specific, and even more chilling. Emergency alert update. Citywide shelter-in-place order now in effect for Houston and surrounding areas. All residents are required to remain indoors and secure their residences. Do not engage with anyone outside your residence. Avoid all direct interaction with others. Law enforcement and National Guard units are being deployed to enforce perimeter and ensure compliance. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Confirmed reports of reality fluctuations are under active investigation. Trust no one. This is not a drill. Those words, repeated for emphasis, hit me harder than the initial alert. They were stark, unambiguous, stripping away any lingering hope that this was some kind of mistake, some bureaucratic overreaction. This was real. Something was actually happening. And it was serious enough to warrant a citywide lockdown, the deployment of the National Guard, and a direct order to not even engage with anyone outside my apartment, to trust no one. Do not engage with anyone outside your residence. Trust no one. Those phrases, repeated in stark digital clarity, resonated with a chilling paranoia that was starting to seep into my bones, a cold, insidious dread that had nothing to do with logic or reason. I walked back to the window, peering out again. The street was definitely emptier now, almost deserted. The few cars I had seen earlier were gone. The sidewalks were empty. The city was still, suspended, waiting, and the silence, it was more pronounced now, deeper, more oppressive. The usual Houstonian urban hum, the background murmur of traffic and human activity, had faded away, replaced by a heavy, unnatural quiet that felt wrong. The air itself felt different too. Thicker, somehow, heavier, almost viscous, like the humidity had solidified, clinging to my skin, weighing down my lungs, making it harder to breathe, harder to think. And then I saw it, or rather, I thought I saw it again. Down the street, a figure walking towards my building, a woman in a bright yellow dress, her face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, but her gait, something was off about her gait. Jerky, unnatural, almost mechanical, like she was moving in stop motion, her movements flickering, stuttering, then snapping back into place, as if the very flow of time was skipping around her. She walked past a parked car, and for a fleeting moment, her shadow, it wasn't hers. It was something else. Something elongated, distorted, monstrously out of proportion to her body, stretching out behind her like a living thing, then vanishing just as quickly, replaced by the normal shadow of a woman walking down the street. But the image lingered in my mind, burned into my retina, a fleeting glimpse of something wrong, something terrifying, something that hinted at a reality far more fragile, far more unstable than I had ever imagined. And then she stopped right outside my building, directly below my window. She looked up, or rather, I think she looked up. It was hard to tell with the hat obscuring her face. But I could feel her gaze, even though I couldn't see her eyes, a cold, unsettling sensation that prickled my skin, raised the hairs on the back of my neck, screamed danger to every fiber of my being. And then she smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach her eyes, a smile that was not quite human. And in that moment, staring down at the woman in the yellow dress, at her unnatural smile, at her distorted shadow, I knew it wasn't just my imagination. It wasn't just anxiety. Something was happening. Something real. Something reality-bending. And it was here, in Houston, outside my building. Now, my breath hitched in my throat. It wasn't safe here. Not by the window. Not where they could see me. Not where they could reach me. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my mind reeling, struggling to grasp the enormity of what was happening. Trust no one. The phrase echoed in my mind, a chilling mantra, a seed of paranoia taking root in the fertile ground of my fear and uncertainty. Trust no one. Not the government, not the news, not my friends, not my family, not even anyone on the street below, smiling unnaturally, with distorted shadows, moving in jerky, unnatural ways. I retreated into the center of my apartment, away from the windows, away from the doors, seeking refuge in the deepest, darkest corner of my living room, huddling on the floor, pulling my knees to my chest, trying to make myself as small, as inconspicuous as possible. Isolation. They wanted isolation. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't just for our protection. Maybe it was for theirs. Maybe it was to keep us contained, to keep us from seeing too much, from understanding too much, from realizing what was really happening. My phone buzzed again. The last emergency alert, before the cell towers went down, before the digital world went dark, before the final silence descended. Emergency alert. Reality integrity breach imminent. Containment protocols failing. Perimeter compromised. Entities manifesting. Do not look at them. Do not acknowledge them. Do not engage. Trust no one. There is no safety. There is only change. May God have mercy on us all. There is only change. Entities manifesting. Do not look at them. Trust no one. No safety. The words echoed in the darkness. A chilling, despairing final transmission. A last gasp of sanity before the world dissolved into chaos. before reality itself fractured beyond repair. And then silence. Complete, absolute, deafening silence. Broken only by the frantic hammering of my own heart and the growing, undeniable feeling that I was no longer alone. Not in my apartment, not in my city, not in my reality. Something else was here. Something manifesting. And it was at the door. I could hear it now, a soft, almost imperceptible scratching sound at the front door of my apartment. A delicate scraping against the wood, slow, rhythmic, persistent. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And then a voice, whispering, just outside my door, barely audible above the pounding of my own heart. A voice that was not human, not quite. Something else. Something changed. Listen, the voice whispered, a chorus of voices, layered, distorted, unsettlingly familiar, yet utterly alien. We are already inside. And as the scratching intensified, as the door began to creak and groan under some unseen pressure, as the whispers grew louder, closer, more insistent, I understood. The reality fluctuations weren't just outside. They were inside, within the building, within my apartment, within me, and there was no safety. There was only change. If you felt the chilling tremor of those reality fluctuations and the suffocating dread of trusting no one, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows me to delve deeper into fractured edges of reality and bring you more tales from the other side of sanity. Hit that notification bell to ensure you never miss a new descent into the abyss of the unknown. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying entities are not the ones we see outside, but the ones that whisper from within, telling us to trust no one, not even ourselves.